Working? 1, 2, 3. Did everybody have a good time last night? I knew producers like to party, even though they failed to demonstrate that to the comedians last night. But you did do a good job catching up in the bar. You know, usually I'm in bed by 9, and I was almost in bed by 9, second 9, again, but I had to show up here first. I thought it was a really great day yesterday. A lot of fun last night, and again, I think that's those sponsors dinners that we did were kind of a highlight. But the party last night that we had at the Comedy Awards was killer. Anyways, I'm supposed to stay on time today, so it was great to catch up with many of you, and I am looking forward to today's sessions as soon as the rest of the gang wakes up. But first of all, I'd really like to, a big shout out to Kevin Kroll, and just thank Bell Media, who's our platinum sponsor and sponsoring things today. Kevin is, as I mentioned when I was talking about Corey yesterday, Bell is an incredibly big partner and has been a big reason since they helped us get terms of trade done for a lot of the success that's happening in this industry. So Kevin, thank you very much for the breakfast, and hopefully, those kind words will, just open the benefits tap, and we'll all be good. But I'd also like to thank our other platinum sponsors, without whom our event would also not be possible. And as we all know now, they are Astral, CMF, our lead government sponsor, Telefilm Canada, and William H. White, which, as everybody knows, let me just test you in the front here. How many years are they celebrating? 50 years. Awesome. So I'd also like to thank our many gold sponsors: E1 Entertainment, Netflix, Starlight, the Canadian Movie Channel, and TELUS. And a huge thank you to our silver sponsors this year from Arts and Entertainment Television Networks, the Motion Picture Association of Canada, it says here. Awesome. Motion Picture Association of America, Breakthrough Entertainment, Creative Post, Parliant, Precision Transfer Technologies, and Shaftesbury. So it's my pleasure today to actually introduce Jean-Pierre Blais, and we can slow down the teleprompter here because I know Jean-Pierre quite well, and while there's a lot in the notes about his career, I think a lot of us have known Jean-Pierre for a long time. I first met Jean-Pierre when I was at the Cable Association, trying to bring in more American channels. I think, was it 17 at the time, all at once? That was fun. That was fun. I'm surprised I have this job. Jean-Pierre was Francois Bertrand's right-hand man, which, meant really Jean-Pierre was in charge of the CRTC back then. This is really his second go-round. I did get to know Jean-Pierre very well. I got to know Jean-Pierre even better when we were working on the CTF together, and when he moved over as ADM at Heritage. And one of the things that's kind of interesting is we had a board meeting the other day, and we were talking about Jean-Pierre and just the future for production. And he's going to talk a little about these kind of things. But everybody said, well, everything's through a consumer lens now, which means like everything's through a consumer lens. Well, that kind of sucks. And what about culture, and what about creators, and what about future for our children? And I said, the news says everything's through a consumer lens, but you have to think about it this way because I've had conversations with Jean-Pierre over the years, and he probably gets it better than any CRTC chairman in the last 15, 20 years. And that is that, when you're thinking about consumers in the world of access, it's important to keep consumers happy in terms of pricing and selection and choice. Even though we love bundles as producers, but you got to keep the consumers, you got to keep them happy, because that's how you engender loyalty to the system, and Jean-Pierre gets that. But he also gets that the essence of consumers when you're talking about broadcasting is the consumer as audience. And not just the mass audience, but niche audiences, you know, the promotion of diversity, the promotion of choice. And if Jean-Pierre is a champion of anything, and he is a champion of the audience, he's also a champion of ensuring that, you know, Canadian culture, Canadian content, and production, export opportunities are front and foremost in everything the CRTC is doing. I don't know if that's your speech, Jean-Pierre, if you got anything else to add, or, you know, Kevin wants to go up and make a pitch. But, you know, I think at this point, what I'll really do is just welcome you to the stage. And you can, I gather you've had a pretty busy week, and, you know, telling us don't leave town in April. Is that, that's fundamentally it, but perhaps you'll tell us well. So I'd like if everybody could give a really big hand for our friend Jean-Pierre Blais.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. You've obviously, Michael and I have known each other for quite some time, and he's obviously had very different incarnations, and frankly, you can see that he's reaching new levels of enlightenment, and perhaps pretty soon infallibility in his views. And if he wasn't doing such a good job here with the CMPA, I'd point him in the direction of a job opening in Rome. In any event, ladies and gentlemen, I've looked forward to this conference, knowing that it would happen just a few days after the inaugural Canadian Screen Awards. So first of all, I want to congratulate all the nominees, and especially this year's award recipients. Certainly your creativity has earned the well-deserved recognition of your peers. Il ne fait aucun doute que le Canada compte énormément de gens de talent, des comédiens, des écrivains, des musiciens, des concepteurs, des réalisateurs, des producteurs, des spécialistes de tous les secteurs de la production. Il y a beaucoup d'histoires à conter, il y a plusieurs manières créatives de se faire, ainsi les raisons sont nombreuses de se réjouir et de célébrer dans le secteur du cinéma et de la télévision. In addition, I think the awards highlighted the remarkable spirit of collaboration between various members of the industry. Healthy competition is good. But there comes a time when we must set aside competition and come together for the greater common cause. And I'm hopeful that these awards will be a springboard to a renewed sense of excitement of Canadian screen-based production. That in turn will benefit the entire industry. So as Michael said, ladies and gentlemen, on several occasions since my appointment, I've spoken about the CRTC's vision, a vision for a world-class communication system for Canadians. And I also emphasized the needs of putting Canadians back at the center of their communication system. I'm referring here to Canadians as consumers, very much so, and the media have picked up on that one. But I also talk as Canadians as citizens and Canadians as creators. And today I want to talk to you about Canadians as creators, more specifically, Canadian producers. And that includes independent producers, in-house producers, and digital media producers. I want to focus on creating the business opportunities of tomorrow. Now, I realize that identifying new business opportunities isn't always easy, but I think that, as Michael noticed, at its essence, it's about understanding the expectations of Canadians, of Canadian audiences, and whether those audiences are local, regional, national, or international. I'm fighting a bit of a cold, so I'm trying not to cough. It comes down to understanding what Canadians want, learning from what they choose, influencing their tastes in the future, and generally helping those audiences discover the great content and the inspiring narratives that you create. Thomas Bata, the head of the Bata shoe empire, once told the Toronto Star journalist, and I quote, "Executives should be people with a sense of urgency, a demand for excellence, and a healthy discontent with the way things are," end of quote. So I ask you, Does Canada's production sector have a healthy discontent with the way things are? And I don't mean are you discontent with the regulatory system, or are you discontent with the behavior of other players in the system? I'm asking whether or not you have a healthy discontent with what is potentially within your control as entrepreneurs. So let's look at those questions together. First, I think it's fair to say that the sector has a solid foundation on which to build for the future. So before we ask what can we do better, let's not forget what works well. According to your profile 2012, Canadian productions in 2011-12 hit a 10-year high. It expanded by 5.6% to almost $5.9 billion. So independent television production was up by 21%, and it's especially impressive that the volume of English language fiction television production climbed 41.4% to just under $1.1 billion. You're also drawing larger audiences for these productions. The CMF in 2011-12 backed 25 programs that attracted average audiences of over 1 million right here in Canada. And Canadian productions also appeal to viewers in the US, European, and many other markets. All this certainly suggests you are doing a lot of things right. Consider also that we may be at a time of unprecedented funding for screen-based content. For instance, Canadian broadcasters spent $2.8 billion on original Canadian programming in 2011-12. And let's ask, where did these funds come from? There were, of course, advertising revenues, including roughly $200 million generated from simultaneous substitution. Now here I'm going to go off my script, so let's open a parenthesis. CRTC authorizes broadcasters to ask for simultaneous substitution, and if they do so, distributors are obliged to accommodate that. Now, we also know that many distributors are closely linked with broadcasters. So I wonder why, when I see, through our complaints process, people complaining about simultaneous substitution rules, I see still standard answers from distributors associated with broadcasters saying, oh, it's not us, it's the CRTC forcing us. I think, folks, in the broadcast and distribution business, you benefit from this, and it's perhaps time that you start defending the reason for that and not blame the CRTC. Close parenthesis. So I was talking about all the money available in the system and where it comes from. So over $350 million was provided by television subscribers and Canadian taxpayers through the Canada Media Fund, and independent funds kicked in another $50 million. The federal and provincial tax credits contributed as well, to the tune of about $730 million. And let's not forget the screen-based investments, and I do say investments, made directly and indirectly by federal provincial agencies in film, television, and digital content. There are also millions invested as a result of tangible benefits stemming from transactions in the broadcasting industry. From January 2007 to December 2011, these transactions generated over $722 million in tangible benefits, most of it earmarked for new programming. Il est également intéressant de noter que 2011-12 représentait la première année de radiodiffusion après que le CRTC ait renouvelé les licences de la plupart des services de télévision de langue anglaise, qu'exploitent notamment Rogers Media, Bell Media, Chorus Entertainment et Shaw Media. Ces entreprises doivent maintenant consacrer un pourcentage de leurs revenus au contenu canadien, y compris aux séries dramatiques, aux comédies et aux documentaires. Last year, these four companies likely spent over $900 million on Canadian programming, and they should be applauded for that, not just because we are requiring it by regulation. Early indications suggest that even more will be spent on Canadian programming in 2012 and 2013. The current projection is that spending by Canadian broadcasters will surpass $3 billion for the first time. These investments are vital. They produce production jobs, generate economic activity, support creators, broadcasters, and advertisers who pay taxes right here in this country. This money enables you to create high-quality films, TV programs, and other screen-based content for distribution on multiple platforms. Content that helps define who we are as Canadians. Content that, in the words of the Broadcasting Act, informs, entertains, and enlightens. Enlightens us all because we are the owners of the Canadian communications system. Creators like you can continue to put Canada on the world map as a producer of quality content, content that attracts new audiences both in Canada and in the fast-growing international marketplace. Your sector represents success. Your sector's success is a tribute to the talented people, the taxpayers' investment, a supportive regulatory environment, and your past business acumen. But ladies and gentlemen, that being said, there's no time to rest on your laurels. BlackBerry CEO Thorsten Heinz said in a recent interview that the rate of change every year on the internet is equivalent to 45 years in any other industry. And the internet is full of opportunity for your businesses. And whether we like it or not, the screen-based sector is now very much part of the broadband sector. So a healthy discontent with the status quo will be pivotal to continued excellence in a crowded national and international marketplace. From a production financing perspective, for instance, one can ask whether the Canadian production sector has fully explored the opportunities provided by the CRTC's Canadian content recognition of international co-ventures. This would be in addition to the better-known recognition of official co-production arrangements, which are the subject of yesterday's announcement by the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Official Languages. Similarly, have you asked yourself whether you have maximized the opportunities to connect with new audiences and attract new advertising revenues? How do you brand yourself in the international marketplace? Are you cashing in on the vast array of distribution networks to connect with new viewers in a world that knows no borders? To paraphrase the Red Wilson report, Compete to Win, Canadian businesses need to step up their game and become more competitive both here and abroad. To succeed in a broadband world, the production industry needs to move beyond individual projects. We need well-financed global champions producing content for the world stage. We should be creating international brands that can compete with the best on the globe. However, that's not an outcome we can achieve through regulatory edict. It requires entrepreneurship. Cela ne fait aucun doute, le CRTC appuie grandement les créateurs canadiens et les histoires qu'ils veulent raconter. Toutefois, tant que je serai là, vous ne trouverez pas un partisan de la protection, mais un partisan de la promotion. There's no question. CRTC is a serious supporter of Canadian creators and the stories they want to tell. But under my watch, the CRTC will not be a protectionist organization. It'll be, and I am, a promotionist. That is why the CRTC is pleased to be sponsoring a working group along with the CMF and Telefilm Canada to promote and increase the success of Canadian films, television series, and digital media. For instance, we want to build on the success of programs like Flashpoint, Heartland, and Bomb Girls, which are being bought by distributors in every corner of the world. In 2011-2012, Canadian TV shows racked up $440 million in international sales, a new record for the sector. We also want to build on successful international co-productions such as The Borgias, The Tudors, and Resident Evil. But it's not only our productions that are attracting foreign audiences. Des concepts comme Starbucks et les Bougons montrent qu'il existe un marché pour notre créativité. Et nous avons toujours été des chefs de file mondiaux dans le domaine des documentaires, de l'animation et des émissions pour enfants. So our job at the CRTC is to make sure the conditions are right for you to create compelling programming, adopt groundbreaking business models. When I use creators, people often assume I mean and refer to actors, screenwriters, directors, set designers, and so on, and they certainly are creators. But business leaders such as you are also creators. Imagination and innovation are every bit as essential to your company's welfare as are the stories you tell. So how do we leverage the investment Canadians have made and are making in the production industry to fuel innovation, create more jobs, and produce world-class storytelling in a diversity of forms and formats? How do we grow Canadian production companies into businesses that can successfully compete with the best the world has to offer? As I said from the outset, I think it comes down to delivering what Canadians want to watch. And that means, as a first step, determining what it is they want. So just look at what's happening around you. In addition to more traditional platforms, the media now revolves around social media, emerging aggregators of content like Netflix, and big data. I was recently in California where I saw firsthand how search engines using sophisticated algorithms that mine data, such as previous purchases of screen-based content and social media posts. These search engines are reshaping the media world. This is especially true in the San Francisco area, where companies like Roku and XTV are coming up with entirely new business models. The region is the center of experimentation and where the future of media is unfolding. It's essentially about creating curatorial tools to enable the discovery of content by viewers in a very crowded marketplace. It's about leveraging digital technology to assist the audience in finding the content. And as Fred Forster, CEO of Omnicom Canada, told a group of broadcast executives in Toronto last month, big data is taking over. He made it clear that the old metrics don't apply in an ad-skip, channel-shifted, time-shifted, place-shifted, device-shifted content world. But it's not just about data. The innovation involves social scientists analyzing trends and psychologists evaluating how test is defined and shaped. Thanks to technology, audiences have increasing control about how, where, and when they view your audiovisual content. But by the same token, content creators are not passive passengers on this technological roller coaster. Aujourd'hui, un producteur de contenu sur écran doit définir des moyens novateurs afin de mettre à contribution les outils de la découverte. Il doit devenir un conservateur de plateforme. Il doit amener des gens à avoir envie de quelque chose. Autrement dit, il doit faire le lien entre le contenu et la personne qui pourrait le visionner. Today, a screen-based content producer has to find innovative means to harness tools of discovery, to become a platform curator, to be a maker of taste, in short, to connect the potential viewer to the content. Rather than replacing traditional roles of media, as mediator, technology has made the task more complex, but even more essential. So what are the means of shaping discovery today? Here are a few thoughts, initial thoughts. First, there's no question that real-time content, news, sports, reality TV, live talent competition, election coverage, will continue to be the basis for appointment viewing, drawing audiences to traditional forms of broadcasting for the foreseeable future. Second, trusted brands influence discovery. Clearly, content producers want to leverage existing relationships with conventional and paid TV services, as well as cable and satellite companies. These broadcasters and distributors have well-established brands that are familiar to a large portion of today's audience. In fact, part of my message to you, the independent production sector, is that broadcasters and distributors have been, and will continue to be your key partners. But there are also emerging brands owned by less traditional aggregators that must also be leveraged. You might not know who they are, so find them. Third, a sense of buzz and excitement that gets the audience, gets the attention of social media and conventional media without the need to invest in traditional and often more costly means of promotion. For instance, if you are creating even though you're creating great professional quality content, We are living in a time when amateur videos make multinational stars out of the kid next door. People who can barely dance, act, or carry a tune get hundreds of thousands, if not hundreds of millions of YouTube hits, drawing advertisers eager to cash in on new audiences. Now, we can have a long philosophical debate as to whether this content is good or even in good taste, and whether these trends strengthen or weaken our cultural fabric. But that won't change the simple truth. People can now choose if and when they can watch screen-based content. And well before you get to enlighten or entertain those viewers with your compelling narratives, you must find ways to help them discover your content. You must use promotional, analytical, and technological tools to help them do just that. Some of you are doing a great job already. I noticed that Société Radio-Canada's 2TV, Québécois, Illico TV, Rogers Anyplace TV, Shawgo, and CTV.ca are excellent examples of experimentation and risk-taking, which is so vital to creating the business opportunities of tomorrow. It's those last 5 words I really think matter, creating business opportunities of tomorrow. As broadband networks spread around the world, content is what attracts investment and talent, promoting prosperity in the digital economy. The producers that succeed in this environment will be those which create content that people want to watch, that investors are willing to invest and pay for, and that advertisers want to be affiliated with. Now, Canada's production community has unparalleled opportunities to be successful in this environment. Ce pourrait être une occasion unique qui ne se représentera pas de sitôt, de faire prospérer votre entreprise en l'amenant vers de nouveaux horizons. Mais vous devez faire face à la concurrence, comme dans n'importe quel autre secteur. This indeed could be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to grow your business in new directions, but you need to compete just like other sectors. Easier said than done? Maybe. I appreciate that one of the challenges for the creative community is to set aside for a moment their passion for the content in order to embrace the skills of entrepreneurship, because no amount of taxpayer subsidies will ever be able to match it, and there's no guarantee that the subsidies will always be there. They're terribly cute, but this, ladies and gentlemen, is the future. It's your future. These are the audiences you'll need to attract in a few short years, the next generation of consumers that advertisers will covet. They want to learn, they want to see themselves reflected, they want to be surprised, they want to be wowed. So are you ready? Are you asking the right questions? Are you doing the right things to secure your future? Do you have the necessary sense of urgency? Has the independent production sector done what is required to remain independent? I think this industry is at a fork in the road. Do you have your own capital? Do you have a strategy to build your own successful brands? How do you take more risk to guarantee your future? You are the experts when it comes to both creativity and business. It's up to you to put the first foot forward. I see great opportunities, if you do, and the CRTC will be there promoting your success each step of the way. I'm in agreement with one of our country's most successful business people. Thomas Bada advised that business executives should demand excellence and not be content with the way things are. So think big, give us wow, help us discover what we want to watch. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre. That was really great because it validates a lot of the thinking and action plans that we have been talking about here today, and and with our board. Although I would say we have a new business models committee at CMPA, and we've set out some targets and priorities. And just to show you that producers can be nimble, just only 4 or 5 minutes ago, co-ventures became the #1 priority for the CMPA team to explore, and we commit to our members, by next week you will have a note from the CMPA exactly how we can leverage that along with some of the co-production opportunity that the government gave us tomorrow. Right, guys? Thanks, Jay. He's on it. So that was, but Jean-Pierre, that was a great thing. You know, usually people come here and promise us a whole lot, but everything you said holds promise, because everything you said shows not only a commitment to the cultural side, but our ideas about how you do have to grow a business, how we can't count on any of the incentive programs that exist today for our future, how we do have to reach out. And what you said to us is, I heard you say, is that you're willing to work with us if we're willing to work along that path. And I think we've started down the path. And so knowing that as long as we're on that path, we're on the right track and we have your support is incredible. So the crew's going to take a few minutes just to settle our next panel on the stage. And during that moment, I would like to call up again the ever effervescent Stephen Ellis to pick an iPad. If anybody was at the comedy show last night, they know that Barry Kiefel's multiple cards that were in the box are no longer in the box. And the winner, again, is Carol Bourbon. Gilbert Olé. Gilbert. Oh, thank you very much for being right at the front. This was not a setup. Félicitations, Gilbert.
Thank you. I'm just sit beside Jean Bureau, another winner.
Jean, you've got one too, don't you? Awesome. Oh, we have to, little picture. Hey, come on, let me in. Yeah. It's my show. Okay. So I think what we can do right now is we do have a panel. Trina, I think you can start organizing your panel, bring him up. We don't have any numbers on the chairs because depending on what happens over the next few weeks, some of our panelists are probably going to be moving around, switching chairs. So we thought just, you know, pick anywhere you're going to be more comfortable sitting in about 3 months. Christine, Trina, Kevin, Gary. Good luck, guys.
Oh, Malcolm, thank goodness. I didn't see you come in, so it's great to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, could we have the house lights up, or I guess they are up as far as they go. We wanted to start off, even before the introductions, by doing a little bit of crowdsourcing. So if you're with me now, could you put up your hand if this is the first time you've ever attended a panel on Canadian content? Okay, 2 Australians and a student. How many of you have attended more than 5 panels on Canadian content? How many of you more than 10 panels on Canadian content? How many of you more than 20 panels on Canadian content? So we know who we're talking to, and we can put the lights down now. You're experts. And what we thought we'd do today is to try to do, along with Jean-Pierre's exhortation to us all to become more entrepreneurial, to do a little business analysis of Canadian content. And when you do this analysis, which is called SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, what you do first is define your objective. And our objective in doing this SWOT analysis is how can we make Canadian content so strong that there will never need to be another panel on it. So
good luck with it.
Okay, so let's start with the strengths of Canadian content. And let me first introduce our panel. I won't introduce them too much because if you don't know who they are, what are you doing in this room would be my question. Christine, the fabulous Christine, who operates a huge group of specialty channels and a network, all of who are invested heavily in Canadian content. Gary Mavera, the guru, who's seen it all and still is inspired and inspiring for Chorus Entertainment and for the whole industry. Malcolm Dunlop, whose devotion to content is very well known and who's setting Rogers on a new path to success in Canadian content. And the man himself, Kevin Crowe, when you talk about scale, he has it, and he's going to have more of it soon, I'm pretty sure. So Canadian content to all of them is important for the future, and we're going to start out with asking them, what are the strengths that you see now, Christine, in Canadian content? Just strengths, and we're going to give you, each of you, 2 minutes to talk about strengths.
The strengths that I see, first and foremost, is the level of talent we now have in our country. It's been a 10, 20-year journey, but I think we now can proudly say we have the top talent. There's no question. And I think as we go through Trina's exercise, you're going to see some of these categories in some of these subjects in many of her categories, by the way. I also think we have a huge strength that we are reaching audiences and we're seeing big ratings for Canadian shows, which I think 5 years ago we just couldn't say. And I mean that not just on our conventional platforms, but on our specialty channels, which finally are seeing over 1 million viewers for one program on a specialty channel. I mean, those are big numbers. And that's a testament to the quality going up. There's absolutely no question. I won't name all my shows and spout and be proud. But I think at the root of it is we have a production community who believes they can do anything. And I don't think that confidence was there even 3-4 years ago. That's how I see the strengths.
Okay, Gary.
Let me start, Mr. Chairman, a great speech, and I had a personal experience last night which I think illustrates the new world and the power of brands. Last night I came from the airport, and through force of habit I went next door because I thought this conference was next door, walked into the convention center and saw across the way a registration area. And as I approached it, 2 people came up to me and said, "Sir, you're going to have to sign a non-disclosure agreement before you enter the conference." So I looked at them and I said, "I'm with the RCMP." And they said, "Okay then." And they let me through. Power of a brand. I can't tell you what it was about. This one's better, though. So what are the strengths? Just building on what Christine said, I guess the first thing is, I told Peter Lyman last night that I was going to shred his report today, which I'm sure he took me seriously on. But one of the things that this really terrific report, Profile 2012, says is that we have a predictable revenue market. It shows that, and of course there are some ups and downs, and we're all a bit fearful about the future, but we do have a pretty strong base, as the chairman said, of funding for the system, roughly $6 billion. And then building on what Christine said, I think a great strength of the system is that our skill set is so high in Canada. Of course, it's so high because we do a lot of great stuff, and the great recognition we get is from other producers from abroad is that they want to come here and make programming here as well. And I guess the third thing that is a real strength of the system is that we have great stories to tell. It's just never ending, the number of stories that arise out of this society. So we've got the great raw materials to be strong in production.
Okay, Malcolm.
Thanks, Tina. I think I'm probably going to say a lot of what the other two panelists said, but I think the really important thing is how Canadian content has really gone across the borders and international. I think what that causes is it causes more and more talent to really be interested, maybe who have been in LA and to come up to Canada, who are Canadian. We've got an example with one of our producers, Andrew Ornstein. He went down to LA when he was 18 years old, and he's going to make it in LA because that's where you had to make it. And he ended up with Malcolm in the Middle and Third Rock from the Sun, and he never really thought of coming back to Canada. But I think with the strength of how good the Canadian production is now, he thought this is a great opportunity to come back to my own home country and put a show on, do a show, a package deal. That really he wanted to do it because the Canadian production is so strong. So I think the big thing is Canada's getting a reputation of being great producers, both in front and behind the camera. And I just think it just means the industry is getting stronger and stronger.
I'm all good, thanks Malcolm. So a little bit of repetitiveness. The strengths that I think for the Canadian production industry, definitely the talent and the quality. I see it, as this audience knows, I'm still relatively new, a couple of years into this role, and it should make us all proud the way we punch above our weight in the international community of creating talent, writers and whatnot. And it's not just our stories, I think, as Gary mentioned, it's the way we tell stories. It took a Canadian like Flashpoint creators and producers to not focus just on the heroes, but the toll that being a hero takes on them personally and individually. And then Motive, a crime show, there's a million police procedurals that are out there, but it took a Canadian writer to focus on why crime is committed, not who commits crime and what the crime is. And so I think the way we tell stories is unique, and I think that it's finding audiences. We have a great track record of hits. I agree with Christine. The numbers are impressive, and nowadays, you can't count on an American drama to produce the kind of audiences. We're seeing American dramas that are launching and coming out with 400,000 or 500,000, and we're seeing our big Canadian shows that we're really getting behind regularly doing over 1 million. I think a great strength is the competition in the industry. You have to win when all of us are fighting for your best ideas. And the competition is as fierce as ever, I think, amongst broadcasters to fight for your best ideas. We're strategically committed, not just committed because of it being an obligation that we have. And I do think the last strength is a terms of trade agreement that is balanced and is win-win for the industry.
Okay, so it's nice to hear terms of trade as a strength.
Sorry, Malcolm, that's okay.
But let's go on to weaknesses and be honest with us, because we have to hear some thoughts from you all on what the weaknesses are and how you see them. Gary, do you want to start with that one?
I guess the first thing, the first weakness of the system is the absence of scale. What do I mean by that? I mean the scale to be able to sit at the intellectual property table and in fact get invited to the intellectual property table and to have the resources to buy that intellectual property in competition with others. It's the scale to do research and development in your company, the ability to withstand the odd failure, which we all know in this business is unfortunately more often the case than not. The scale to expand beyond Canada. Mr. Chairman, you referenced in your speech the potential of international markets. You need to have a little bit set aside in order to get outside of this market and be able to spend on developing. And I guess the last thing is the scale to manage rights. Again, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to suck up to you too much, but your speech hit a lot of important touch points. For all of us to manage rights, we need to put in the R&D and we need to put in the grunt work. And the interesting thing about this vast internet, which seemingly has 1 million doors of entry, the fact and the reality is that if we don't develop an open rights management system that everybody can access into, the companies that own those rights management systems are going to own the market. And for an illustration of that, I think all of those of you who have dealt with iTunes know that there's basically one contract that gets slid across the table at you. And that's what I mean by owning the rights management market. I guess those are the 4 weaknesses that I see.
Okay, Malcolm.
I think really what I want to touch on is really talk about when we go down to LA, and I've been fortunate enough to go to LA for a lot of years, going to the LA screenings, and you know, what really amazes me is the buzz that happens before the LA screenings, and you know, everybody, every day you're on looking at all the pilots that are there, and I think it goes back to scale. In the US, it's such a huge market, and there's so much buzz about these shows before they even come to air. And you know, in the US, 350 million people compared to 35 million here in Canada. They have shows dedicated to nothing but really promoting these TV shows. You know, they've got talk shows, you know, tens of talk shows every day that promote their US content, and it all bleeds into Canada or simulcast into Canada. There's just so much buzz in the US. There's Entertainment Tonight, there's Access Canada, and I think, you know, one of the weaknesses here in Canada is it is very challenging to get our shows sort of the same kind of buzz that that they get in the US. You know, I agree, you know, things like Motive, it was great, you know, got promoted in the Academy Awards, got promoted in the Super Bowl. I think that's wonderful. I think it's really hard to use the same scale as the US, and I think as Canadians, we expect that same sort of buzz for our shows, and I think it's hard to get. I know our show Seed, we were really, really proud that it did 600,000 in its first week, and we think that's a great number. But once again, how do you promote this? How do you tell Canadians that this is a great show? I think it's very, very challenging. I think that the truth is, you know, there's still sometimes the perception, especially when we're doing comedies, that the Canadian comedies just aren't as funny as the American comedies, and it's just not true. I can tell you, once again, from going down to the US, I see our Canadian comedies, and they are better than what you see from the US pilots. And I think it's just trying to tell Canadians, and you try every platform that you can to promote it and do everything, but it's a challenging model, and I think that's what I see as the biggest weakness, or if not weakness, a challenge within the system.
Okay, Kevin, let's go.
Okay, thanks, Trina. Well, I'm going to focus on the business of the business, and I thought when the chair pointed out that, you know, you can use creativity in the business of running what we do, it was important as well. And I find our biggest weakness, and it's a bit of a threat as well blended in there, we have a monetization problem. Our industry is unique in that we don't get productivity on our costs. Because we're a people-driven business, you know, we can't cut people's wages by 10% every year like you can cut the cost of producing microchips or computer equipment or transmission equipment. And our costs are fixed. It costs the same amount to produce seed, whether it's viewed by 600,000 people or by 6 million people. And so we really have to focus on the revenue side of our business, the monetization. And I think that we're in a bit of a crisis on monetization. Advertising, the fragmentation of advertising has hit a tipping point where advertising alone is just no longer sufficient to do what this business does. And the second thing is we have, with the expansion of digital cable and also with all of the plethora of new ways to watch content, we now find that Canadians are only watching half of what they watch. 50% of the Canadian viewing is within the Canadian system. So half of what Canadians watch is outside of the system. And there's leaks in that system that actually I think we can work together to address. Things like there's 8 sources of leakage that we've identified, and just a couple of them, the chair did talk about simultaneous substitution. But non-simultaneous substitution is a good opportunity for us. And the reason it's as big of a deal for Canadian programs as it is US programs, because your revenue is tied to our revenue. And the importance of me delivering revenue is what generates what I can spend on your programs. Distance signals has really, really become a big issue where in Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver, in fact, during prime time, frequently as much as 75% of the viewing is to a distant market, which means there's no local advertising opportunity. You're leaking all of that advertising. And these are actually very, very unique to the Canadian system. I don't know of another country that has this problem. A brand new one on this list, and then I'm done with these, is we're very supportive of over-the-top, and we know the genie is out of the bottle on foreign over-the-top services, and the innovation that that has brought is driving all of us to get better. But there's a new emergence of using foreign IP addresses. And so a lot of people are plugging in foreign IP addresses into their Apple TV box or things of that sort, and then getting the rights from the US where those aren't even in Canada. And this is just, again, one of many viewing leakage problems that are causing what I think is a real monetization challenge.
Okay, Christine, do you want to follow up?
Sure. It's interesting, all of our different points of view when we give the category of weakness. Mine comes right to the heart of the actual content, as you know, that's where I live. And I think one of our weaknesses is that we don't, and I had this written down before the chairman said it, I don't think we put the audience first. I don't think we think enough about what people want to watch and where they want to watch it. And every day we get pitches and we just say, well, where would that show go? What brand does that align itself with? Like, we're not thinking about that audience enough. And even doing enough research. You know, we do the research, but we need producers to do research and think about this. I also think that we have a weakness in our talent pool. As I said, it's on both sides of the fence. We have talent limitations, and I think you're all aware of this. The competitiveness that Kevin's talking about, when shows get greenlit, oh my God, there just isn't enough talent to support what it is we've greenlit. And we need to have succession planning. We need to support our training institutions even more so. It's wonderful to see some more benefits packages going to those institutions, because that's what we need in this country. We don't have the scale and the amount of productions going on that we can continually be training in production. And I'll leave it at that, because there's more on the threats.
Okay, so let's get to threats.
No, opportunities.
No, opportunities is last, because we want to leave you feeling okay and not really suicidal.
Kevin covered a lot of the threats.
Healthy suicidal, not healthy discontent. But okay, so let's do a little bit on threats. And do you want to start?
I will, Tina. I'm kind of shocked because I thought I would be starting with opportunities. So threats. You know, I think the big thing about threats, and you know, Kevin touched on it, I think television is an industry that's changing all the time. And you know, just in the last few weeks, you get the TMN on the go, you get the SVOD service launched by Videotron, you get the Bell Astral merger. So this industry is changing all the time. At Rogers, most of what we do is on the conventional side, and I think everybody knows conventional television is under attack, and it's a challenging business. And you know, at the end of the day, if the revenue from conventional television falls too much, it affects our CP and affects the money that we're able to spend. So I think that's certainly a threat. Obviously, over the top is a threat. You know, there's so much fragmentation. There's so many Netflix, so many Apple, opportunities for people to consume content on so many different platforms in so many different ways. Just makes it harder and harder to get the eyeballs. And if the eyeballs don't come our way, once again, it means less revenue and less money into the production industry. So I think that's probably the biggest threat. Obviously, in certain regions, there's the loss of tax credits. I think that makes it very challenging for certain producers. Obviously, Saskatchewan, very difficult for them in that marketplace. So I think there's threats, and once again, I think it's a revenue threat is the biggest thing. And you know, we just have to make sure that we make strong content that people watch, so we get advertisers, and with advertisers, put more money into the system.
Thanks, Trina. I think the threats, and I'll try and set up the opportunities with some of it. The analogy I would use is that the frog boils. That things feel like they're moving orderly in the industry, but all of a sudden, you know, you wake up and that nice warm bath is boiling and you're dead. You're a dead frog. I think, you know, we've seen the emergence of digital media. We've seen the growth of OTT. We've seen the demand for anytime, any place, any device viewing for several years. And I can tell you that it's hard to be nimble. It's hard to move fast when you do have such a massive existing industry structure that is really critical to keep us all going while we're inventing these new things and addressing these new opportunities. And so that existing structure needs to be nurtured and maintained equally as importantly as the focus that we're putting on building the new stuff, because that's what's really going to fund everything that we need to do, because all of this new stuff takes incredible investment and has long payback times in many cases. So the ability to move quickly and figure this stuff out is the threat that scares me.
In terms of threats, I had another personal experience last night.
With the RCMP?
Not with the RCMP. I was sitting in my hotel room going through email, and I saw the email from the Canada Media Fund about their new report. So I said, hey, I better read that before the session tomorrow. I was across the street at Fairmont, and I went onto the CMF site, and I clicked on the download to get the report, and it said, sorry, we regret to say that due to partnership reasons, we are unable to share this report with international audiences. And clearly, the Fairmont Hotel IP system is being run from somewhere else. So from that computer standpoint, I was not in Canada, which was a great illustration of the complexities of rights management. Kevin touched on the viewership and the leakage issue. We were just looking last week at viewing statistics in Canada and the use of, some of you have been looking at the MTM statistics. And just a combination of foreign linear viewing and just Netflix now is 21% of Canadian household usage. 21%. A huge threat for all of us, producers and broadcasters alike. Kevin mentioned the loss of subs and advertising to OTT. And I think one area that just hasn't had enough attention, and Chorus is a very small player in the business, but Kevin, you mentioned it, is local television, I think, is really one of the foundations of the Canadian system. A lot of producers don't sell a lot into that market, but I think it's a great threat to the whole system if we don't find a way to preserve that.
I do agree with everything you've said about OTT, especially because, as we know, they don't contribute to any kind of Canadian content contribution in terms of production the way we have our CPE. I think a major threat is that, and Kevin, everybody's touched on this, is we're not moving quickly enough in terms of providing our advertising partners with metrics. And I know it's a big priority for everybody on this panel in terms of how do we give them the information they need so that that money does move to those other platforms. It's as pure and simple as that. I think I have an opportunity idea for that, but it really is a threat to us, and I think that we can't do it quickly enough. I know it'll come, it's just not there yet. So it's just making that whole community quite rigid with their money. And on the money side, I think I have to put it in the threat bucket is, you know, financing of our shows. We know budgets are going up, we know why, we're all demanding more quality, we know quality delivers ratings, and we all sit there and argue about our budgets, but our actual budgets aren't going up at the same level that production budgets are going up. You know, the audiences are shifting. We know that our specialty audiences this fall are flat to last year, and we're okay with that. We're running our business smartly. But the truth of it is, it just means my budget for you doesn't go up. So it's just that balancing act of how we manage it, and it just puts that much more pressure on you to bring money to the table in partnerships.
Okay, so let's feel a little better about things and talk about some opportunities. And Malcolm, do you want to start off again?
Start that again?
Okay.
Sure, thank you. I think, you know, in terms of opportunities, once again, I think it's fair to say Canadian programming has never been better. Quality attracts quality. I think probably what I would delve on is a second screen. I do think it's a huge opportunity, I think, in terms of being able to promote your shows and be able to have marketing partners. Second screen is so important. You know, when we did Bachelor Canada, it was such a huge part of it, the second screen, and trying to engage people. And a show like that is perfect, as I'm sure Amazing Race Canada is, and I'm sure Big Brother is. And I think we just, as broadcasters, we need to embrace that. And I think television's such a great industry for social media and second screen, you know. People want to follow TV shows. People want to become engaged, and they want to be part of it. I can't think of anything better than television for social media and second screen. It kind of kills me when I get my dentist's office wanting me to follow them on Twitter, and I think, like, really, why would I follow them? But when I think of a TV show, it's such a great thing. And if you have kids, or, you know, kids in their teens or early 20s, they are on their computer the whole time. They're on their pads when they're watching it. They're engaging, and, you know, it's if they find something they like, and it's such a great promotional tool that they can, you know, tell their friends, and it just escalates up. And once again, I think it's also a revenue source for everybody to really focus on second screen and find out innovative ways to do new things.
Okay, Gary?
Opportunities. I think there are many.
Personal anecdote to go with this?
No, I don't have a personal anecdote, but you know, the international market has been mentioned again. Mr. Chairman, you spoke to that, and some of you may have heard that we're probably going to be filing an application with the CRTC soon about a purchase agreement that we have with Bell and Astral. And one of the things that we have in there is about $3 million for what we're calling the Chorus International Export Fund, which we're going to be talking to somebody else about administering. But the whole point of it is that the international market really is where we're going to grow. The $6 billion is going to stay about $6 billion. It may go up a little bit, it may go down a little bit, but we can expand this market. Chorus is a big producer. We're now operating in 100 countries. And the reason that we're there is not because of our broadcast capacity, it's because of our programming. The only reason that NBC Universal wanted to twin with us on Kids Go International was because we had 4,000 episodes of programming. So that's a big opportunity. And I guess the other big opportunity, getting back to is the issue of scale. And our view is that companies like, and the things that companies like E1 or the DHX cookie jar merger are really an indication of where the production community should go. We need 3, 4, or 5 really strong producers in Canada who have the scale to take their product to the Canadian market and international markets. And I think it's a big opportunity if you can succeed in doing that.
On my list for opportunities, and I actually had it as a strength and forgot to mention, it picks up on Gary's saying about scale. Us, as broadcast entities, us having a group CPE gives us scale to really look at our portfolio and look at where to invest money in the right programs. And we have the opportunity to use our complete portfolio to not only move and focus those dollars, but to promote the programming that we are putting money behind. And I just think that's important when you think as our companies get bigger, there is an opportunity in that. It also means, obviously, we have a lot more time slots for shows, and we can create those event programmings that Malcolm's talking about. I think we shouldn't be afraid of big formats. I think big formats coming into this country are an opportunity, and guess what? Because it's my #1 thing I'm going on about today, it affords training. These big formats that come in and we bring totally Canadian crews on them, and the amount that people are learning on these big formats is unbelievable, and then they're going to take them away, create their own formats, bring us great programming. One other thing I'll say is an opportunity, because it was touched on earlier, is branded content. And we've all talked about it, and we need to be smarter about it. We need to help our advertisers understand what that means. And it's a way to leapfrog, and not wait for the metrics problem. It's a way to bring our advertising partners into our content and have real honest conversation about what they're trying to achieve, what audience they want to reach, and how we can give them entertainment that will reach those audiences, and their money will come with the content as opposed to just being surrounding it and buying ad time. That's a big opportunity in my mind.
Thank you. Kevin, do you want to clean up?
Thanks, Trina. To the point earlier of listening to consumers, I wrote down the opportunity is curiosity. Curiosity to really know what viewers' evolving needs are, and whether it's 10-year-olds on a panel or it's anything in between, to really listen to our audience, and then the courage to create new stuff based on what we hear. Who would have thought, you know, some of the shows that are really delivering mind-blowing numbers, some from down south, Duck Dynasty, the numbers that this show is delivering, and the audience interest is really pretty astonishing. And then everything zombies lately has really taken off. And so having the courage to identify a passion, a niche, and then to create to it, I think is one thing. There's some things around then curiosity, courage, and control. And there's things that we definitely as a broadcaster control, and then there's some things that I think our industry needs to really work together. What we control is training and mentorship and apprenticeship for the next generation, I think, of folks who are going to sit at these tables and who we're going to do really big deals with. So we are working with Corey's team. I'm very excited about creating an umbrella program. And by the way, this is not out of benefits. This is out of operating expenses that we intend to bring together some of the programs that focus on new writers, new showrunner training, emerging producers, young producers, and really put some effort into apprenticeships and development for them.
The Bell Boot Camp was a very interesting
So
idea.
for showrunners, absolutely. We're very excited about that. And we think the whole end-to-end ecosystem, including writers and producers, needs attention for the next generation. And it's not just me who has noticed that a lot of our most important partners are looking at places in Florida. And so we need the next ones who aren't so hungry to spend time in Florida, who are going to produce our great hits. The second thing we control, the chair touched on simultaneous substitution, and it really made me think and ponder. Another thing that I've been troubled by in my tenure, a little bit over 2 years, is our industry does have more contention than we need, and the competition that we have has gotten in the way. I think that we haven't yet figured out that we're all here to stay and we all want to succeed, and a rising tide will lift all of our boats. And things like simultaneous substitution, where you would think that in the mutual interests of broadcasters and distributors that are in both businesses would be able to solve it. We've had a hard time as an industry focusing on that rising tide as opposed to the pokes in the eyes. And that's something that actually I have a whole list of rising tide initiatives that I hope I'll be able to get traction with partners. The last thing, though, and I have to say this is where the outside help that I'd like to have. A lot of that 50% leakage, it's not just, I totally support the innovation and what OTT has brought, but a lot of that leakage is the fact that we don't have a really good, solid rights protection. There are rebroadcasts of U.S. superstations, for example, where a U.S. superstation in Atlanta buys rights to a program, and they only buy Atlanta, Georgia rights, and yet they monetize it and broadcast it all over Canada, despite another broadcaster owning exclusive Canadian rights. We can plug that hole. We can plug the distant signals problem and restore an advertising market where we can really monetize and maximize what we monetize through advertising. Non-simultaneous substitution is something that will really help our Canadian productions. I know you've all lived through the frustration of being bounced around in a schedule when things change from from our US simulcasts. And we see an opportunity. We've been so excited by the success of some of our Canadian productions in our primetime schedule in key time slots in the fall and in the winter schedule. And we'd like to have a Canadian production every night in a key time slot, and we'd like to air it at 9 p.m. on Tuesday and keep it at 9 p.m. on Tuesday. And the only way that we can do that is if we have non-simultaneous substitutions. So when a change in our American scheduling happens that steps on top of that 9 p.m. Tuesday slot, we don't have to move out the Canadian show. So there's things, again, these are rising tide issues that I think that we can work together as an industry. And monetizing our content, I talked about a monetizing challenge. We want a level playing field to be able to monetize our content just like the foreign OTT, foreign broadcasters can monetize, and monetize in a consumer-friendly way. It doesn't mean jamming costs onto consumers at all. It means giving consumers choice, but allowing us to monetize in that consumer-friendly way.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. There's been a lot of information coming out at you. One of the things that I'd like the panel to vote on now is, for all these threats and opportunities that we've outlined, do you think that closer, more frequent interchanges with the production community would help turn these threats and weaknesses into opportunities? How many of you believe that? That's you. All you have to do is put up your hand.
I believe it.
Do you believe?
Yes, I do.
Gary?
I guess, yes, but
Okay.
I guess...
Do you believe?
But, there's a but.
There's a but.
You believe, okay.
I think lots of interchange is good, but we can't do it in public all the time. We have had, the last 3 years, we have incessantly told the Canadian public that there's something wrong with what we do. We have to stop doing that, folks.
Yeah.
What we do is spectacular. I said over breakfast this morning, I wish I could buy every Canadian, you mentioned Florida, I wish I could buy every Canadian a ticket to Florida, tell them to stay there for 2 weeks, and the only thing they can do there is watch television. They come back here and say, wow, it's pretty darn good here, starting with local and all the way through. And we keep having these headlines about this or that that makes Canadians think that somehow what they're getting is not the best, and it is the best.
And that's a very good point, but let me ask the audience, how many of you believe that outside the bubble world of panels, that an interchange at more points in the production process, at more surrounds of production like analytics and promotion and so on, would help you solve some of your own threats and weaknesses? So put your hand up and see if you think that there more collaboration with broadcasters would help. I can't see.
Not that many.
Not that many.
Okay.
So do you believe that there is too much collaboration between broadcasters and producers? How many of you believe that? Not too much. So you must believe that the interaction between producers and broadcasters is about the right level. Is that correct? Okay. How many of you who are producers believe that you should have more interaction and connection with broadcasters? Okay, now
100%.
I'm seeing some hands. So you have 4 of the most powerful of your customers saying, we'd like to have more dialogue, we'd like to have more interaction, that would help us. We don't need to fight in public, we need to promote in public. We have a lot of producers who want to do that. So Michael, I guess you're going to have to fix that up, how that can work and how that can help. But one thing that I've heard during this conference that I haven't heard for a long time is this sense that Canadian content really is not just world-class, but ahead of the world in both our talent and our programming and the support mechanisms that we have in place. Nothing's perfect, but it can be improved. But enjoy what you have now, because someday you'll be looking at these as the great old days. So hopefully we can have a system that will build on what we have now, so that the great old days will continue into the next decade, or whatever the heck I'm trying to say here. It's just a message that this is a golden moment. We can make it last, and we can turn gold into platinum. So thank you very much to the panel for all that.
You were good. You went right to clock.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. Did you enjoy it?
Thank you. Well done. Absolutely. Gary, thanks.
Trina, thank you very much for doing that, and thank you for some of the busiest people in the industry coming here today. We have a couple of extra minutes. We're actually ahead of time today, so lots of time to go outside, talk to some colleagues, enjoy a coffee. So our first network break is really being held now, but then at 11 o'clock we're going to move into breakout sessions. So please select which of the breakout sessions you really are interested in, and let's arrive promptly on time at 11. Each one of those lasts an hour, and then the breakout rooms are being held along the corridors yesterday on the other side of the concert floor. So then we'll see you back at 12 o'clock for some very interesting perspectives on international. Thanks, everybody.